Summer of 2022 has been absolutely incredible for indie games, coincidentally most involving amphibians or reptiles for some reason. We got awesome releases like Shredder's Revenge, Time on Frog Island, and the topic of this here video, Frogun or Frogun or however you pronounce it. Frogun is an old-school platformer from the days of the PS1 and N64 that features a unique grapple mechanic used to traverse the various levels within. Frogun was released August 2nd, 2022 and developed by Elgato and published by Top Hat Studios. It started life as a project on Kickstarter and quickly made its goal in just 2 hours. It's hard to not fall in love with its crisp, low-poly graphics and translates beautifully in 4K on the PS5 version I've been playing. The low-poly aesthetic of the game is a breath of fresh air from the typical 8-bit and 16-bit inspired design of most indie releases. This art style has seen quite a resurgence, mainly in the realm of horror. 2021's Murder House uses that art style to create an unsettling scene to say the least. It's a wonderful trend as people are getting older and are nostalgic for those titles from the early days of 3D gaming. When I first saw the trailer for Frogun, Ape Escape and Croc immediately came to mind. These titles all share such vibrant and colorful worlds full of nooks and crannies begging to be explored. Frogun is the story of a young explorer named Renata who goes adventuring with her parents who are inventors and archaeologists. Her folks went on an expedition that was deemed too dangerous for her and was told to wait behind at camp. Renata had not heard from her parents in 2 days and decides to take action with their invention, the titular Frogun. The Frogun is pretty much self-explanatory. It is literally a gun that shoots a tongue out from a frog's mouth. Renata uses it to traverse the many perils and pitfalls that lay ahead of her, and had best get a grasp of its use if she hopes to save her parents. The world map is reminiscent of those seen in most Mario games. It features treasure chests that can be opened once you have cleared the prerequisites of obtaining multiple medals, from tasks such as completing the level under a certain amount of time, or completing the level without dying. These chests contain unlockable hats for Renata to swap out, or hearts to increase your max health. You can also find a vendor who sells you new hats, shows you the bestiary of all the enemies and bosses you have encountered, medals, which are the game's achievements, and the gallery. I'm especially a huge fan of the gallery. They include official game art and even include fan art, which is a nice touch and thank you to those who back the game. This is a 3D platformer and collectathon, which means you will traverse each level in search of not only the goal, but the various collectibles sprinkled about. There are coins to collect, gems, and obsidian stones that can only be found by finding hidden wells that transport you to a secret area to obtain them. The Frogun functions like a grappling hook, and a lot of the puzzles and platforming make great usage of it. It's neat when you get the hang of it, but the aim mechanics can be kinda wonky. At times the tongue will latch onto an enemy or wall you had no intention of aiming for, and has led to a lot of unnecessary deaths. This can make simple platforming a challenge. Renata's walking speed was also quite jarring upon first time playing. She moves slower than what I'm used to in a platformer. However, that's where using the Frogun effectively comes in. You can zip through most stages when you find spots you can hoist yourself towards. Always check your surroundings too. The camera is comparable to Toad's treasure tracker, where the challenge lies in shifting your perspective. You may find a collectible or those secret wells. There are jars scattered in each level that you can latch onto to skip some areas entirely. Speedrunners can rejoice with the many ways you can complete each level. Most of the challenge comes from grabbing every collectible. The game is fairly easy if your only goal is to get from point A to point B, but I can't help myself. I'm a bit of a completionist, so getting 100% in the game in my eyes is really getting your money's worth. And for only $14.99, there is a good amount of game to be had here. On a single level, especially late game ones, I've spent almost half an hour or more getting all the collectibles. And yes, that includes the amount of times I have perished. Elgato balanced the difficulty well in Frogun. The first few areas are fairly easy and then ramp up in difficulty the further you go. New elements like disappearing platforms and invisible blocks that are only visible once you're in proximity add some zest to those late game levels. All in all, this title has a lot to offer, but is not without some pitfalls. One gripe outside of the aim mechanics is having to recollect collectibles when you die. Each time you die, you are brought back to the last checkpoint. The checkpoint saves whatever you have collected to the point you made it there. So if you gathered coins, gems, etc. after the checkpoint, you will lose them once you die. This isn't so bad early game, but can quickly annoy you in later levels where checkpoints are spaced out further apart. There is also a considerable amount of post-game content here. Once you beat the final boss, you have access to a special world with new bosses to face and boss rush modes. Frogun is an excellent little adventure with some minor hiccups, but doesn't hinder the experience too much. Grab your Frogun and set forth for a RIBBITing adventure.